All right, excited to get the season started with this staff and group of players. And as a head coach, been a part of a lot of staffs, and each one of them is special in its own way. This is the most experienced staff I've coached on, and learned a lot being around some of these guys. And 340 plus years between us in the sport, so there's a lot of experiences we can use with each other. And it's a group that cares a lot about each other, likes to have fun together, and does things for the right reasons. Very fortunate to have the staff that I do. A team that has 40 new faces, going back to January when we started this season, and 2 new coaches, and several off-the-field personnel changes as well. So fall camp has really been different. It's one of building chemistry, the sweat equity, the experiences that you have, the storytelling that goes on in the nightly meetings, discovery, for us as a staff, seeing what these new guys can do and how it gels together, and competition. There are several position groups that are still competing, even though there's a depth chart, there's still competition going on. And we see our depth charts we see as fluid. They're not picked for the first game and they're never going to change the rest of the season. They will change. There will be competitive things that happen, when we get in the lights and under the pressure of the season. But it was a lot different than last year's fall camp. Last year we had a lot of players back. We knew what kind of the questions were going to be. And so it was fun, for me to have a different year that way, to see the team respond and work together. I do believe this team has a huge chip on its shoulder. There's a lot to prove for a lot of players, guys that waited their turns. One of the things that happens with this COVID rule where kids get extra seasons is you get to see the Isaiah Moores and the Grant Gibsons and guys have extra years, but you also don't get to see who was waiting to play behind them, who's maybe in their 3rd or 4th year that's worked really hard. And so now you get to see the Jalen Scott at outside linebacker who's had a great training camp. Devon Betty, you get to see, some of these guys now, Anthony Carter at guard, and players that have waited their turn, And so excited for those guys, and they haven't heard a lot about themselves publicly, so I feel like they've got something to prove. I think Porter Rooks has really had a great training camp for us. He's a guy that played behind Thayer Thomas for a long time, and now he wants to get out there and show what he can do. So it's been fun to watch, as a head coach. And we've practiced a lot, like every team has in the country, from bowl prep all the way through the off-season program, and you get into your spring practices and now fall camp. So everybody's ready to compete against someone else at this point, and excited that we get to do it sooner than later with the Thursday kick. It's the first opportunity, first leg of the journey, and so, it's a long season, and a million things happen, and it really happens quickly. 3 months of calendar time, which, how I look at it, it's dog years to me, college football and coaching, and so, times 7, and you talk about the number of things that happen as a coach. When you look at our first opponent, UConn, one of the most improved teams last year in the country. We played them early in the season, and they had a pretty stacked schedule early, didn't do well, which, when you're the first year of your tenure as a head coach there. But the thing that you saw with Coach Mora's team is they got better and better and better, and ended up getting hot, beating Boston College, beating Liberty, qualifying for a bowl game, and playing Marshall in their bowl game. A lot of respect for Jim Mora as a head coach, and his obviously upbringing in the NFL with his father, and then what he did collegiately as a head coach prior to. He's done a really nice job, and they have a lot of players back on their roster. Offensively, really good tailbacks. Both guys are productive on film. I know a lot of these guys are changing jersey numbers, as you look at them. But last year, number 22 and number 25 are the 2 returners at tailback, and both of those guys are really good players for them. They're definitely a team that wants to run the football. Their offensive line returns 3 of their starters, really 4 if you look at the rotation they had at times. And they've got a quarterback similar to us that transferred in with their offensive coordinator now. So their offensive coordinator came from Maine, and now they have a QB that just came from Maine that played under him. So he'll have the ability to help their offense grow probably faster than somebody who wasn't in it prior. But they do a lot of formations, a lot of motions, a lot of eye candy, a lot of misdirection. Do a nice job with their formations, condensing and expanding, and just making your defense use their rules. We'll have to be very disciplined on defense, have to have great eye discipline with all the different movements that happen in the backfield and the motions with the receivers. On defense, they got 10 starters back and really impressive front four on their D-line. They got 2 3-year starters on their defensive line, 2 2-year starters. Their ends are long guys. They're heavy inside, 297, 306. Both ends are 6'4" and 6'6". So impressive looking guys up front. I think their nose tackle, number 97, is a very active player. I enjoy watching him play. Their middle linebackers, 4-year starter, returning leader, captain, returning tackler, stand out for them. Their safeties are both returning starters, number 1 and number 2. And both corners have played a ton of football for them. So, we get a team that's going to be a lot different than the team we played a year ago, and which is good. It's going to be a great opportunity to go on the road, have a road trip, and it's been really hot down here, so we look forward to playing up there. And it sounds like 50-degree weather. It'll be a nice break for our guys. Today, I looked at the temperature on my app. It just had a cactus. Like, that's hot. When it says cactus hot, So we're excited to get up into the Northeast for a game. For us as a team, I've always felt like games are often lost as much as they are won. And so a lot of our focus has been there, to be a team that wants to win the conference championship. It starts with premium execution and eliminating preventable mistakes. And so, that's really, really important for this team with 40 new guys, new offensive coordinator, is really focusing on eliminating things that we can, making our systems as easy as possible for our guys where they can play really fast. Still goes back to us focusing on win and turnover margins and the explosive play battles, minimizing our pre and post-snap penalties, making routine plays routine, and having complementary football with our special teams. Excited about our special teams, the way they came out of camp. With our depth charts, you guys have them. Our offensive line, excited to see those guys play. They've done a nice job with Coach 2J learning a new system. There's a lot of improvement that you see with these guys. They all played for the most part last year. But Anthony Belton returns with a lot of playing time at left tackle. Tim McKay, a lot of playing time at right tackle. Dylan McMahon now looked really good at center. Excited about how he's playing right now. Anthony Carter, Derek Eason at guard. And we'll get Lyndon Cooper back. He had an injury during training camp, so we'll have him back after the first game. So we got 6 guys that have played a lot of football on the O-line, and then when you look at the backups, there's guys that have played as well. Excited about the progress of some of those players, and we'll talk about them if you guys have questions. Quarterback Brennan is in a good space, really good head space. He's having fun. He's confident. He's excited to play a game, and looking forward to seeing him compete, in a game live. We protect the quarterbacks in practice. You don't really get to see him as a runner that way, and so looking forward to seeing that part of his game. Our backfield probably are one of our biggest strengths on our team, and you look at the depth that we have there in the rotation that we'll be able to have, and how Coach and I likes to use multiple backs and giving them roles and creating things for those guys. So excited to see those guys, and Kendrick Raphael, the freshman, probably the one that you guys haven't seen. We get a chance to see him as well. Chris Tootle and Trent Penix, Jamonte Vereen at tight end, rotating, and receiving group. It was probably the area that we had the biggest questions, just not on ability, but who would step up. Keon had a great camp. We expected him to, and obviously you saw he was voted captain. Julian Gray and has really had a good training camp for us, and look forward to seeing him take the next step with Terrell Timmons. Those two guys neck and neck, playing really good football in practice on one side, and then on the other outside position, with Keon and Bradley Rosner. Feel like we have a good rotation outside. There'll be a lot of guys getting time inside, but I would say between KC and Rooks and Jalen Coit. Those three guys have really made a lot of plays. And I think Coach and I and his offensive staff have really done a nice job going through the spring, pretty vanilla, getting a chance to see what the guys can do, and then putting the foot on him over the summer on where he wants to see improvement, and then getting into training camp and really expanding this thing and giving guys certain areas that they can grow in. On the defensive side, Coach Gibson and his staff, great continuity. Tony does a tremendous job. And even though we've lost several good players, as you guys know, there's a lot of excitement, and each group's a little different. Our D-line has good experience back with Savion, Davin, and C.J. Clark, Trevally. And then there's some newcomers. Brandon Cleveland played some for us last year as a freshman. He's really improved. But with transfers, Red Hibbler and Noah Potter, we've added to our depth there. Linebacker, we all know Peyton Wilson's story. Excited for Peyton. Looking forward to watching Peyton play. But Jalen Scott and Devon Betty, Caden Fordham, those three guys have really had a good camp. And so we look for kind of a rotation there. The back end, same way. Jakeem Harris, Devin Boykin, Robert Kennedy starting with Bishop Fitzgerald and Sean Brown and Darius and Cecil being able to play. And the two corners, both Shy and Aiden, had really good camps. Terrente Hinton has come on. We're excited about him. Brandon Cisse, a true freshman, will play and have an impact on our defense as well. And the way that Tony does it, he likes the rotation. He likes to get guys in and let the guys get rest, and so that they can play fast. And with the tempo offenses we face, the increase of snaps, I think that's really important. Lastly, the specialists, as I announced earlier, Braden Artison's our place kicker. Shimko returns as our long snapper, and Caden Noonkester's really had a good camp at punter. Excited for him. And Colin Smith will continue to handle our kickoffs. Jalen Coit takes over as our punt returner, and Julian Gray returns as our kickoff returner. So I think that covers our roster and theirs. I'll open it up for any questions.